Welcome to 14th edition of Dialogue, presented by Prime Point Foundation, e-magazine Presents, and Digital Journalists Association of India. Recently, the Government of India has issued a notification bringing the news and entertainment, online news and entertainment contents under the purview of Information and Broadcasting Ministry. This has generated a lot of debate in the media level, whether it is going to be a policy or policing. Though regulations have not yet been announced, the discussions are going on. In order to get some clarity about that, we have with us Mr. R. Jai Krishna, a senior media expert and also Secretary General of News Broadcasters Federation with us. Welcome, Jai Krishna. How are you?
Thank you for your time. Thanks for giving an opportunity.
Oh, thank you, and thanks for joining our show. And what made Government of India to bringing that new type of orders or likely regulations, proposed regulations? What prompted the government to?
A couple of things to start with. The internet penetration has increased in the last 5 years since the launch of one of the major telecom players offering very cheap data prices. That has also increased in the advent of consumption of content, especially the news and the online content, which through the OTT or other platforms in the last at least 5-7 years. Social media such as Twitter, Facebooks are also being proliferated in the tier 2 and tier 3 cities. So with that background, what has happened is there is also a threat of this new media, as we call it, and the new digital media. What has happened is that two things. One is there was an advent of fake news, right? Somebody would post out something without any verification and information, and that had led to mob violence. One of the crucial cases was the mob lynching in Uttar Pradesh, where a Muslim family was killed for having beef, which was not the case. And there was also one case in Karnataka where a youngster was mob lynched because they thought he was kidnapping children, which is not the truth. So anybody who had an access to a smartphone, which is about about 70% of the country, anybody who has an access to the internet have started becoming publishers. So anything you catch on the camera, or you put it on the Twitter, Facebook, social media, or you create your own blogs. So this has created a huge challenge for administrators, especially when the cases of actual people are getting killed. So this case came up, the mob lynching case and the fake news case came up in the Supreme Court about a few years ago, and the government was asked to take initiatives. So the first initiative was the government tried to negotiate with the social media companies. If you remember earlier in the messaging platform WhatsApp, you could do multiple forwards. You can send one forward message to hundreds of people, but then they restricted to only 3 people. All these measures, the government thought it could be the issue can be addressed by catching hold of these social media and new media companies, but they didn't realize the actual problem is in the content. Somebody is actually writing fake content and fake information. So how do you control it? Multiple cases started up piling up at the Supreme Court, various courts, and there was also this ambiguity on who controls the internet. Traditionally, regulations in India have been platform specific. So internet comes under the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, under the Information Technology Act. But that is as far as the technology is concerned. But when there is content, it was a gray area. So the Supreme Court had asked in the recent cases, a couple of cases, including the Sudarshan TV case and multiple other social media cases, on who's taking the ownership. So that was the first thing, to take the ownership of the content, regulating, I would say, the content or the ownership of the content, is when earlier this month, the Government of India had issued a notification on what is called the allocation of business rules, which means allocation of business rules is essentially says which ministry which handle what, right? So every ministry has got their own allocation of business rules they handle within that area. So this online news and content was brought or introduced as the content part to be handled by the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. So that's the first development which happened. And right after that, they also introduced FDI, which is the foreign direct investments and disclosure of investments by news companies, online news companies, because we never know how these news companies are owned, who funds them. Right, that could be an enemy state or it could be a friendly state, and they could create some kind of a public interest. So the FDI rules have been announced.
FDI is for news
It stands
portals.
for the foreign direct investment.
Hello,
For
news
online
portals.
news portals, for
News
online news
portals.
portals, and for online entertainment companies.
Okay.
As far as to draw a parallel in the television industry, the entertainment, or even for the print media industry, the entertainment content can be owned 100% by a foreign publisher or a foreign television channel. For example, Star is owned 100%. Sony is owned by 100% by Sony Television. So is the case with a lot of magazines. A lot of entertainment magazines in India can be owned 100% by a foreign company. But when it comes to news, see, it has to be run by an Indian organization, but 26% is allowed in most of the news organizations, including news television. So that is what has been extended to the online platforms. They said up to 26% can be owned by a foreign company. So this is just a development, and the government has recognized the presence of internet as the major medium going forward. And they've just introduced these rules. One, under which ministry does it come? There's a clarity now. There's a clear clarity. The content part of it comes under the Ministry of Electronics, the Ministry of Information Broadcasting, and the carriage, anything to do with
Technology.
the technology part of it
Technology
will
part.
be handled by MeTi. To draw a parallel, it is like using internet technology for your mobile transactions. This had happened. People are worried about this development at the MIB and online news. When the mobile transaction started, it again became an issue on under which law will it become. So again, there was a clarification at that point out about 5 years back by the Reserve Bank said the Reserve Bank will take care of the transactions. The technology part will be handled by the Information Technology Act. So this
Now the
is a
Information Technology Act 2000 also will be amended.
Yeah, it will be applicable on the carriage, who carries it, which will be the internet service providers or your cable service provider or your telecom service provider who provides you the connectivity.
What are the type of regulations that you expect that the government may announce it? Because now it
there's a clear, the clear announcement and the roadmap is clear with these two developments. What the government will get in is regulating the business of the media. Who owns which media? Because in the internet, we never knew who owned the media, who is writing, where the servers are present. Nothing was known until now.
Registration will come, likely to come like RNI for online.
There is a proposal to introduce a registration like when you start a newspaper or magazine in India, you will have to go to a magistrate and register under the Register of Newspapers of India, RNI. The same law, the law which controls RNI is called the Press and Registration of Books Act. So that is being amended to include the online part of it. They're dropping the books registration, but they're adding the online portals. So there'll be a simple registration form which could come in.
Online portal means suppose there are certain lot of websites are there, and websites, are they classified as a news or even many of the newspapers like Times of India, Hindu or Indian Express, Deccan Herald, they are all having their own websites. Even the magazines like us, we are running e-magazines like Presence and all. Or do you suggest that, do you feel that we may have to go for registration?
Yes, everybody will have to go for a registration.
Even news portals.
News portals, it is mandatory. If it is mandatory, so I would presume that the news portals could be said that there should be some kind of an original content, because there is also a threat of there are millions of news portals today which don't have original content. They just copy paste from other people and start earning money, which is called the rogue sites. We call it the rogue sites in the technology space. So it is your content, it is somebody else's content, but I claim it and copy paste on my site and earn money through Google Ads. So that is going to go. right? So there will be pure news sites. I presume the government will look at introducing at least a minimum original content, which is already there in the PIB Act.
Do you mean to say that you are accountable for your own writings, content? Suppose if I
Yeah,
am
whatever you say on the internet today, until recently, you are not, the person is not accountable. Now the person will be accountable. The person who violates will have to be dealt by the rule of law in this country.
how about the fake news? Lot of
The
fake.
fake news, a lot of fake news would come down, because until now those people had the privilege or the advantage of being behind a wheel. They were anonymous in spreading the fake news. Now if a news has to be put out, they will have to, but their identity will be disclosed. So in my view, I think a lot of fake news would reduce a lot.
But it is social media doesn't come under this new regulation, no, because it is only the websites and like Amazon, Netflix, they will be coming under this purview, but not about the social media, Facebook, or how about YouTube?
YouTube will come under this regulations, but not directly, but indirectly, and so are the other mediums as well. So let's understand one thing: all these don't create content. None of these Facebooks or Google or YouTube don't create the content. Yeah, they do have a YouTube originals and Facebook Watch, which is a part of the content which they create. But most of them, it's a platform where one person, it's a P2P platform, it's a peer-to-peer platform. Like you create this content, you put it on Facebook, I watch it. So they are platforms which is actually covered under the intermediary rules. So they had a safe harbor under the intermediary rules, saying that I have no responsibility of on the content, because X person posts it, the Y person watches it. But that could go away with this. Do you think they might be held accountable?
They will also be accountable.
They might be held
Platforms,
accountable
YouTube or
if the
Facebook,
government thinks so.
Twitter. See, I upload a content in the YouTube. How am I? Will it be on coming under this regulation? Suppose if I am uploading content, but now this interview is getting uploaded in the is going on the YouTube. Is it,
Yes.
will it be in future after the regulation comes? How it will be getting included under the regulation?
So under the regulations, I'll give you a very classic example. So what YouTube follows or the Facebook follows, what's the community guidelines? What they think is right for a community across the world. But these community guidelines never have been found violative in any country. It has not violated, even if it found violated in India, they would say it is not violated under the US law because Facebook is a US company, right? So that will go away with this, because their community guidelines which they follow will have to be in line with the law of the land in which they publish.
Will
For
there
the
be
real example, I could tell you, even as people are watching this video today, if you could go back to your email box yesterday, you will find Facebook, Twitter, and Snapchat, and most of these other, even Google for that matter, have updated their terms and conditions to be in line for two reasons: one, for the local regulations of various countries, and two, to enable privacy issues. So
will there
they'll
be
have to abide by it.
will there be a censor? But
It
there
will.
is
I don't think that censor is that's a since the government is stepping into this domain
Hmm.
of adding internet, it has actually created a lot of confusion on whether the government will censor. Practically speaking and legally speaking, the government is not inclined and will not censor. That is my personal opinion. It is
now
not just not feasible. Just imagine, I can count the number of newspapers itself, right? 80,000 newspapers in India. Can the government censor everybody? No. Television, 900 television. Can they censor? No. And compare these numbers with the number of websites, news websites and information websites, and industry websites like yours, the non-profit civil rights activists, individual YouTubers, and TikTok celebrities who post on messages. It is just not feasible for the government. It is not feasible for them to censor. But it brings it to accountability and a responsibility to each of the person to be responsible on what content they put in, which was not all these years.
The clarification that I need is whether Facebook, Twitter, and these type of social media also will be brought under this
Indirectly, they will be
for the contents.
for the content, because they're a platform. I'll draw a parallel. Why I say this. Let's take the RNI rules, right? The Press and Registration of Books Act. Under that, if a newspaper or magazine is found violative, they not only penalize the editor, but the first person to be penalized is the publisher, who's the printing press. The printing press is confiscated, they're penalized. That's why in every magazine, newspaper, last page you will find here is the publisher's name, right? In the television industry, under the cable television networks and downlinking policy, uplinking downlink policy, what happens is any content violative cannot be transmitted in a cable TV. So your local cable TV or DTH, the responsibility lies on the cable TV and the DTH guy who actually brings you the content. Though the content is violative, the carriage, the person who brings you the content is responsible not to take it to you. In the internet era, until now, what has happened is they used to ask the internet service provider. Could be any of the telecom service provider or an internet service provider or a triple play provider, as we call it today. They are given a URL and say, please block this URL so it doesn't get to the consumer, right? So that is the parallel which the government is looking at all these social media platforms. They say, okay, we accept that you have intermediary guidelines and there is a safe harbor rules, but they expect them also to be responsible on it. Let's take an example. A few days ago, when the former president of the US, Donald Trump, declared his own victory, he tweeted his own victory saying that I have won. Twitter banned those words. It did not show. They said it is violative of the truth. It called it, without saying it's a fake news, right? It said it's violative of the truth and it was not available. Content was not available. So that is what the government wants them to do in India as well. And I hope they will do it also.
Is there any parallel regulations in other foreign other countries, or European countries, or US and other?
Most of the countries have what is called the John Doe orders. John Doe orders is an order by a court, right? Until now, there is an order by the court which says you will have to take down this content. But by the time the content is taken down, right, it creates a lot of confusion. The damage has already been done. Let's take the example of this mob lynching case, right? Or the cow vigilante, where people were beating up and killing people who were eating cow or beef or whatever of a particular community. It happened in some other country, and it has been spread in India by a few selective people, right? So the damage is already done. To go to a court, prove to the court that is violative. By the time the social media and the internet media is so fast, it spreads so fast like fire, the damage is done. So it is prevention is much better than the actual curation. So that is why India has taken a lead in introducing these measures. And we need to keep in mind that the last WTO meet, India and Indonesia, which has the highest number of internet users, actually walked out of the digital economy bill. They said we don't accept, right? Hate speech may be accepted in US, but hate speech cannot be accepted in India, right? So that's the fake news, the effect of fake news, especially with the kind of literacy levels in India. It's a very, very serious threat. So it is necessary for us. We walked out. India and Indonesia walked out. These measures are being introduced, and I hope this will bring in an individual responsibility. Today, anybody writes off anything on Twitter and gets off. Let's take the example of MS Dhoni after CSK lost in the IPL. Why should a threat be issued to his daughter? That is irresponsible, right? So that responsibility is what will be brought in by this regulations. It is not policing; it is just a policy.
Is there going to be a change in the IT Act 2000, or will there be a new legislation?
So there will be a change in the IT Act. IT Act did not take into account social media and especially the messaging platforms, right? The let's the if you go back to the history of the development of internet, the first internet was like a directory, which was the Yahoos of the world or the Hotmails, or it was a directory. Then an email came in. Then you had one single page on Google where you can search for anything. Then you had the advent of content. Then your internet became your Facebook, right? So your first entry to your thing has been Facebook, and after Facebook, it has become social media messengers, your WhatsApp, Instagram messages. So every single service has got a messenger today, where one-to-one communication, one-to-group communication can happen, include video communication. So to keep updated on these technological developments, it is actually too late. But the government is thinking, I believe, they are looking at amending the IT Act to bring in the newer challenges.
Anyway, we hope that the legislation or regulations have not yet come. After the regulation, again, we can have a detailed discussion. Anyway, thanks for the at least a proper intro for the new subject. Suppose if the viewers want to get in touch with you, can I have your contact?
Yeah, they can email me at my personal email ID is at this card. It's jaikrishna.r@gmail.com. I'm available on this email ID. I'm easily findable on social media. So you could look at me on LinkedIn or Twitter and send me a DM, or you could send me a LinkedIn request. I'm happy to entertain any queries on this issue.
Thank you very much, Jai Krishna, for the excellent
Thank you for the
presentation
opportunity given.
and an introduction to the newer things. So it has created a lot of confusion in the minds of internet users, internet content producers. Let us hope that how it comes. And again, we can have a detailed discussion after the regulation comes up. Thank you very much for
Sure,
the
sir. Thanks a lot for your